these regulations, so we welcome it as part of this bill.
Sir William Seal.
I'm so excited to talk about this bill. I'm going to confine my comments to Part 19, 19A, Clause 76. But before I do so, sir, I want to tell you why I'm excited about Part 2 of this particular bill with reference to ballast water. The other day, my colleague, the Honourable Damien O'Connor, took us to a dairy farm, and he had us standing in front of this big, huge, open septic tank. There was 2 or 3, and he said to us, "Now, boys, have a sniff of that." So we took deep breaths, and then before we know it, the Honourable Damien O'Connor says to us, "That's the smell of money." And I couldn't believe it at first, but because I just thought it was the smell of cow poop. But I now recognise the point he was making was the value of our agricultural industry. Now, what I noticed, sir, was they had the cow waste go from one septic tank to the next, and there was 3 or 4, and at the bottom they then recycled the clean water, and what they normally do was to disperse that throughout the farm. But in terms of this particular bill, sir, with regards to ballast water, I guess the big question is ballast water means water with its suspended matter taken on board a ship to control the ship's trim, list, draft, stability or stresses. The big question is, where does that water come from? Because if it's water that comes off the final open septic tank, then there is going to be concern, particularly if it's coming from another country. And we may have to ask questions about who owns the water, who has the water rights that goes on these particular ships. We may even have to have a secret meeting to decide who has the rights to the particular water that goes. So I'm particularly pleased because in 246B it says the discharge from ships, ballast water may be discharged from a ship only in accordance with the applicable marine protection rules. Sir, I believe that the farmers, our agriculture sector, our forest sector, our wine industry, they're going to be quite excited about this particular bill, all 264 pages of it, because they're going to have to hire employers, consultants and other people to try and make sense of what's in this bill. Now, don't get me wrong, sir. At the end of the day, the Honourable Damien O'Connor says that we support the bill. But in terms of having the measures that will enable us to hopefully protect and continue to safeguard our borders for the sake of our valuable industry, we really cannot have the government shirk its responsibilities. And so I suppose with the farmers who would be listening into this debate, the responsibility still falls on them to hold this government to account. Because at the end of the day, when Mr. Damien O'Connor says that's a smell of money with reference to our agricultural sector, it underlines the fact that we've got a very valuable industry that we've got to be protective of. Well, look, at the end of the day, I agree, sir, that the penalties that have been imposed of $200,000, I think that also underlines the fact that a fine not exceeding $200,000, if the offence is something one or further fine not exceeding $10,000, I think that sends a clear signal. It imposes responsibility to the importers, but it still should not allow this government to shirk its responsibility, because ultimately government is our representative, has the duty to be able to protect and safeguard our borders, because if that doesn't happen, sir, then we've already seen examples of what has occurred of late. And I'll just give you some examples. When in terms of what has happened, the latest independent report on the PSA disease shows that it cost our economy $410 million.
Order. I'm having difficulty just following the member's logic, but this is quite a specific, yes. So I'd ask the member to contain himself to clauses 76 to 78.
The point, sir, that I'm making in terms of the ballast water clauses is that there is serious concerns about ensuring that the ballast water isn't released in our shores, doesn't, because I'll give you another example. In 1990, a ship by the name of Naomi travelled between the islands of Samoa and American Samoa. Because they did not ensure that there were safeguards and protection on what was carried on that cargo ship. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have now moved on to part 2.